The hall was built to make people feel small. Even Elias Ward felt it. And he was used to strange places. The ceiling rose high above him, like the inside of a hollow mountain, curved and glowing with soft light that shifted colors as different species entered. Tall figures moved slowly on long legs. Floating shapes drifted in silence. Others walked on more limbs than Elias cared to count. Every sound echoed, even breathing. Elias adjusted the collar of his plain human jacket and reminded himself why he was there. He was not important. That was what everyone had told him before the summit. He was a cultural liaison, nothing more. A translator of ideas, a speaker of meanings. He was there to listen, to observe, and to make sure humans did not accidentally insult someone powerful enough to erase them from a star map. Humanity was new. Not newborn, but still young. They had spread fast, learned faster, and asked too many questions for their own good. Some species admired that. Others did not. Elias took his assigned place behind the human delegation table. Earth's representatives were already seated, their faces calm but tight. No one smiled here. Smiling showed teeth, and teeth meant different things to different species. The room slowly settled. Conversations faded. The light above dimmed, signaling the start of the formal exchange. That was when she entered.
Bailiff did not rush. She never rushed.
Her people moved with purpose, not speed. She stood taller than most beings in the hall, her body long and strong, covered in smooth plates that reflected the light like polished stone. Her eyes, 3 of them, were dark and focused, missing nothing. The sound of her arrival spread like a ripple. Chairs shifted, limbs folded closer. Even species who claimed to fear nothing lowered their voices. Valith was a matriarch, not a ruler in the human sense. She did not command fleets or claim territory through force. Her authority came from something older and deeper. When she spoke, her people listened. When she decided, laws bent to fit her will. Elias had seen recordings of her before. Everyone had. But recordings did not prepare him for the weight of her presence. She stopped near the center of the hall, and then her eyes turned. They locked on to Elias, his breath caught, though he did not know why. He had not been introduced. He had not spoken. He was not even seated at the front. He was just a human, standing quietly behind a table. Vela studied him for a long moment, long enough that others noticed, long enough that the air grew tight. Elias felt exposed, like his thoughts were written across his face. Then she spoke. Her voice was deep, steady, and clear, translated instantly into every known language by the hall systems. "This one," Valith said, extending a long, clawed hand toward Elias, "is my mate." Silence fell like a heavy curtain. The translation hung in the air, perfect and merciless. No tone softened it. No explanation followed it. Elias felt the blood drain from his face. Mate? The word meant many things across the galaxy, but everyone in that hall knew what it meant to her people. Someone dropped a data slate. It hit the floor and echoed loudly. A representative from a scaled species stiffened, eyes wide. A floating envoy dimmed its light in what Elias guessed was shock. The human delegation turned toward him so fast, he felt it like a physical force. Elias did not move. He could not. His mind raced, trying to find the mistake. He had never met Valith. He had never spoken to her. He had never even been in the same system as her, until today. This had to be an error. But Valith did not make errors. She stepped closer. "I claim him openly," she continued, her voice calm, almost gentle, "before witnesses, before law, before memory." A low sound passed through the hall, not quite a whisper, not quite a protest. One of the elder diplomats found their voice. "Matriarch Valith," they said carefully. "Surely there has been." Valith raised one hand. The sound died instantly. Her gaze never left Elias.
I am aware of what I say, Elias swallowed.
Every instinct told him to speak, to deny it, to explain that this was impossible. But no words came. He was suddenly aware of how fragile his body was. Soft skin, weak bones, a heart beating far too fast. Valeth stood directly in front of him now. Up close, she was even more imposing. Her presence felt like standing near a cliff edge. "You do not understand," she said, and this time, her voice was only for him. "No," Elias managed. "I don't." A faint shift passed through her expression, not amusement. Something else.
Approval, perhaps. You will, she replied.
Behind them, the hall erupted, not into noise, but into controlled chaos. Delegates signaled aids. Messages flew across networks faster than light. This single statement had just rewritten centuries of tradition. A member of a coalition council finally stood. "Matriarch," they said, struggling to remain composed. "This human is not of your kind. This bond, if such a thing exists, cannot be valid." Baelith turned slowly, her movement deliberate. "Dare," she said simply. The word struck like a challenge carved in stone. "You may dare," she continued, "to question my claim. You may dare to test it. You may dare to try and take him from me." She paused. "But understand this. To do so is to invoke the oldest rights of my people. Rights older than your alliances. Older than your fears." The council member hesitated. Others shifted away from them, unwilling to share the risk. Elias felt dizzy. He was the center of something vast and dangerous, and he had no idea how he had arrived there. One of the human representatives stood. "Matriarch Valeth," she said carefully. "With respect, Elias Ward is a citizen of Earth. We cannot—" "He remains so," Valeth said. "I do not take what does not choose."
I recognize that word again.
Recognize Elias finally found his voice. "Why?" he asked quietly. The hall fell silent once more. Valeth looked back at him. For the first time, her voice carried something almost like warmth. "Because you stood unshielded," she said, "when others hid behind protocol. When others calculated risk, you stood where loss was certain and still chose to remain."
Elias frowned. I don't understand. You will, she repeated.
The summit was suspended shortly after. No one argued. No one dared. Delegates left in careful silence, already planning, already fearing what this meant. Elias was escorted, not restrained, not confined, simply guided to a private chamber. The door sealed softly behind him. He sat alone on a smooth bench, hands shaking. He was just a man, a human, a species still arguing about borders and beliefs, still tripping over its own history, and somehow, impossibly, a matriarch of one of the oldest civilizations had called him her mate and dared the galaxy to object. Outside the chamber, the universe adjusted itself. Inside, Elias Ward stared at his hands and wondered how a single word had changed everything. And why, deep down, a part of him felt that this was not the beginning of danger, but the beginning of being seen. Elias did not sleep. The chamber was quiet, too quiet, with walls that curved gently and lights that dimmed when he closed his eyes. The bench beneath him adjusted to his shape, trying to offer comfort, but his mind refused to slow down. Mate, the word echoed again and again. He replayed the moment in his head, searching for something he had missed. A sign. A memory. Anything that explained why a being like Valeth had chosen him. He had spoken at meetings before. He had stood his ground in difficult discussions. That was his job. But that could not be enough. Not for this. The door opened without sound. Elias stood immediately, heart racing. Valeth entered alone. Up close, without the vast hall and watching eyes, she seemed quieter, still powerful, still impossible to ignore, but less like a symbol and more like a presence. Her 3 eyes rested on him, not weighing him this time, but observing. "You remain awake," she said.
I don't know how to sleep after today, Elias replied honestly. She inclined her head slightly. That is expected.
She moved toward one of the walls. The room adjusted, creating a seat shaped for her form. She did not sit fully, only lowered herself enough to be closer to his level. "You fear that you were taken," she said.
Yes, Elias answered without hesitation, and that my people will pay for it.
Valeth was silent for a moment. Then she said, "You were not taken." She lifted one hand, palm open. "You were named. There is a difference." Elias frowned. "From where I stand, the galaxy doesn't see it that way."
The galaxy sees power,
Valeth replied.
My people see recognition.
She leaned back slightly.
Tell me, Elias Ward,
when you spoke before the Council of Lost Systems 3 cycles ago, why did you refuse protection? Elias blinked. You watched that?
Yes.
He looked away, embarrassed. They were going to dissolve the relief program.
If I had accepted immunity, they would have dismissed everything I said as safe words.
So I stood without it. You risked removal, Valeth said. Yes. For beings you had never met. Yes. Valeth's gaze sharpened. That moment was when you were seen. Elias shook his head slowly. Humans do that all the time. That, Viley said calmly, is why you are dangerous. The word hit him harder than the declaration in the hall. Dangerous? He repeated. You step forward without dominance, she said. You challenge without conquest. You bind yourselves with promises you do not have the strength to enforce, yet you keep them anyway. She lowered her voice.
That is not weakness. That is gravity.
Elias sat back down, suddenly unsteady. No alien had ever spoken of humanity like that. Usually they spoke of humans as clever, reckless, or useful. Sometimes as annoying. Never like this.
You called me your mate, he said quietly. What does that truly mean? Valeth did not answer immediately.
When my people choose a mate, she said at last, we choose a mind that mirrors our core, not desire, not biology. Alignment. Alignment with what? With responsibility. Outside the chamber, discussions burned across the station. Human diplomats argued in careful tones. Other species sent formal protests wrapped in respectful language. No one dared issue a direct demand. Not yet. A message arrived for Elias shortly after Valeth left. It was from Earth Command, routed through 10 layers of clearance. They were afraid. They asked him to remain calm, to avoid commitments, to remember that he represented humanity. He closed the message without replying. Later, Valeth returned, this time with others. Not guards, witnesses, elders of her people, their forms marked by age and experience.
They regarded Elias with open curiosity. This is the human, one of them said.
Yes, Valeth replied. They circled him slowly, not threatening, just observing.
Elias stood still, hands open at his sides. He refused to hide fear, but he refused to let it rule him. One elder stopped in front of him. You are small, they said. Yes, Elias answered. You are brief. Yes, you will die long before she does. Yes. The elder studied him for a long moment.
Then they said, you do not lie.
Bailiff watched closely. The elder turned to her. He does not seek advantage. He does not seek escape.
I know, Valeth said.
Another elder spoke. Do you understand the weight placed upon you? Elias nodded.
I'm starting to. Good, the elder said, because this bond does not shield you.
It exposes you. After they left, Elias finally understood something that had been bothering him.
This wasn't protection, he said to Valeth. This was a test.
Yes, she replied. For what? For whether humanity can stand where it is seen. The next day, the challenge arrived. Not as a threat, as a request. A coalition of 5 species formally petitioned for a review of the bond. They cited imbalance, instability, precedent. Bailiff accepted. The chamber prepared for a public forum. No weapons. No force, only words, memory, and law. Elias was allowed to attend, but not speak unless asked. He watched as representatives presented their cases. Humans were too new, too emotional, too unpredictable. They formed attachments too quickly.
They broke rules when they believed the rules were wrong. Elias felt each word like a weight pressing on his chest.
Then Bela stood. They speak truth, she said. The room froze.
Humans are unpredictable, she continued.
They break rules. They form bonds too fast.
They act before certainty. Murmurs spread. And yet, she said, they remain. She turned, gesturing to Elias. This one stood before you without power, without threat, without demand. He did not promise victory. He promised effort. She faced the challengers. If that disqualifies him, then disqualify every future that requires trust. Silence followed.
Bup!
The challengers withdrew to deliberate. Elias exhaled slowly. Bailiff looked at him.
They fear what you will become.
I don't know what that is, Elias said. Neither do they, she replied. That is why they hesitate. When the session ended, no decision was made, which itself was a decision. As they walked back toward the private corridors, Elias felt the weight of countless eyes following him. He was no longer invisible. He was no longer just human. And somewhere deep inside him, beneath fear and doubt, something steady took root. Humanity had not been chosen because it was strong. It had been chosen because it stayed. And the galaxy was beginning to realize that once humans were seen, they could not be unseen. The forum chamber was larger than the summit hall. It had been designed for moments that would echo far beyond a single station. The walls were dark and smooth, filled with slow-moving lights that recorded everything said within them. Above, layered balconies curved outward, each holding delegates, observers, and silent watchers from across known space. Elias stood at the center platform. Not behind a table. Not behind a delegation. Alone. The floor beneath his feet was cool. The lights were bright enough that he could not see the faces in the highest tiers, but he could feel them. Thousands of eyes. Thousands of minds measuring him, judging him, wondering how something so small had caused such disruption. Valeth stood a short distance behind him, unmoving. She did not guide him forward. She did not shield him. She had warned him. This bond, exposed. The moderator's voice echoed through the chamber. The daring has been invoked. The bond between the matriarch Valeth and the human Elias Ward is under cultural challenge. Words only. No threat, no coercion. Memory and meaning shall decide. A representative from the coalition stepped forward. Their body shimmered faintly, their form difficult to focus on. We begin, they said, by stating that this is not hatred. This is concern. Humanity is young. Their emotions override reason. Their history is unstable. They adapt too fast and form attachments without understanding long consequence.
Elias listened.
He kept his hands relaxed at his sides. He did not interrupt. Another representative followed. Your kind changes systems simply by arriving. You disrupt balances that took centuries to build. You question traditions you do not yet understand. Another voice added. And now, through this bond, you gain influence you did not earn. The words piled up, calm and careful, shaped to sound reasonable. Elias felt the weight of them. Some were true. Humans did move fast.
They did break things. They did question rules that others treated as sacred.
He thought of Earth, of endless debates, of mistakes repeated and lessons learned slowly, painfully. The moderator turned toward him.
Elias Ward, you may respond once. Speak only truth as you understand it.
The room went completely silent. Elias took a breath. He did not look at Valeth. He looked outward.
I won't argue that humans are unstable, he said.
His voice was steady but quiet. The chamber adjusted, carrying it clearly.
We argue constantly.
We disagree even when it hurts us. We make rules and then break them when we think they are wrong.
A ripple of surprise passed through the audience. We are afraid more often than we admit, he continued.
And when we are afraid, we sometimes act badly. He paused, letting that sit. But we don't stop showing up. He lifted his head slightly. We don't stop trying. A delegate shifted uncomfortably. Elias went on.
You say we didn't earn influence. That may be true.
But we didn't ask for it either. We didn't conquer. We didn't demand. We listened. We helped where we could. Sometimes we failed. He looked toward the coalition speakers. When you say we adapt too fast, what you mean is that we refuse to stay small when we see something broken. A low murmur moved through the balconies. Elias swallowed. His heart was pounding now, but his mind was clear.
I didn't stand unshielded because I wanted to be brave, he said. I did it because someone was going to be forgotten if I didn't.
And humans, we hate forgetting people. He finally turned, glancing briefly at Valeth. I didn't choose this bond, he said, but I won't pretend I don't understand why it exists. He faced the chamber again.
You fear what we will become, Elias said. So do we.
But fear has never stopped us from caring anyway. Silence followed. Not the heavy silence of tension, the thoughtful silence of reflection. The moderator waited. Is that all? Yes, Elias said. That's all. He stepped back. Violeth moved then. She stepped forward, her presence filling the space without effort. The lights seemed to shift around her, responding to something deeper than programming.
You have heard him, she said.
He did not deny fault. He did not promise control. He offered no comfort. She turned slowly, addressing every tear. This is why he was chosen. One of the coalition representatives spoke hesitantly. Matriarch, if humans continue as they are, they may reshape the compact itself. Valeth inclined her head. Yes. That is dangerous, yes. A pause. Why allow it? Valeth's voice lowered. Because stagnation is quieter. But it is death that takes longer. The word echoed. Another representative withdrew from the challenge. Their symbol dimmed, signaling formal retreat. Then another. And another. One by one, the coalition dissolved. No declaration was made. No victory announced. The daring ended not with triumph, but with acceptance. Later, in a quiet corridor far from the forum, Elias leaned against the wall, exhaustion finally catching up with him. His hands were shaking now that it was over. Valeth stood beside him. "You spoke well," she said. "I just told the truth," Elias replied.
"That is rare," she said.
He looked at her.
"What happens now?"
"Now," Valeth said, "you are seen. Fully." He frowned.
"That doesn't sound safe."
"It is not," she agreed, "but it is honest. Messages flooded human channels within minutes.
Shock. Pride.
Fear. Arguments already beginning. Humanity had not planned for this moment, but they recognized it when it arrived. They had been acknowledged, not as a threat, not as tools, as equals in progress. Elias closed his eyes briefly. "I never wanted to represent all of us," he said, quietly. "No one suitable ever does," Valeth replied. She turned to leave, then paused. Rest.
The hardest part comes next." Elias opened his eyes.
"What's that?" "Living up to what they now expect," she said. As she walked away, Elias stared down the corridor, understanding settling in his chest. Humanity had not won. But they had been allowed to stand, and in a galaxy that feared change more than conflict, that alone was a quiet, dangerous victory. The messages from Earth did not stop. They arrived in layers, routed through secure channels, rewritten by translators, filtered by urgency. Some were calm, some were afraid, some were angry. All of them carried the same weight. Elias Ward had become a symbol without asking to be one. He sat alone in a quiet room provided by the station, a space meant for reflection. The walls displayed a slow image of stars drifting past, meant to ease the mind. It did not work. He replayed the forum again and again, every word he had spoken, wondering which ones would follow him for the rest of his life. Humanity was divided already. Some voices on Earth called him reckless. They said he had accepted a role that placed humanity under a matriarch's shadow. Others called him brave. They said he had done what humans always did when faced with something larger than themselves. Most simply asked, what came next? Elias did not have an answer. Violeth requested his presence later that cycle. Not as a command, as an invitation. He found her in a chamber overlooking open space. There was no barrier between the room and the stars. Only a transparent field holding the air in place. Distant systems burned softly in the darkness.
"You look heavier," Valeth said as he approached. "I feel heavier," Elias replied.
She nodded. Responsibility has mass. They stood in silence for a while.
Elias noticed something he had not before. Valeth was still, not waiting, simply present, as if she did not need to fill the space with words. "The compact is reacting," she said at last, slowly, carefully.
That's never a good sign, Elias said.
"It means they are afraid to move the wrong way," she replied. "You shifted something." He exhaled.
"That wasn't my intention."
"It rarely is," Valeth said. "Tell me, Elias Ward, what does your people fear most right now?" He thought about it. "Losing control," he said. "Being defined by someone else." Valeth turned slightly toward him. "Then listen carefully. No one owns you. Not me. Not the compact. Then why does it feel like everything is tightening around us?" "Because being seen removes hiding places," she said. Soon after, the pressure became visible. A formal proposal reached Earth and the compact simultaneously. It was careful, respectful, and dangerous in its own way. Humanity was offered a special status, observer partner, limited authority, protected voice. It sounded generous.
It was a cage made of soft words. Elias read the proposal twice.
Then a third time. They want us quiet, he said.
They want you predictable, Valeth corrected. Earth's leadership debated for days.
Accepting meant safety. Declining meant uncertainty. Humanity had spent centuries choosing between those two things. Elias was asked for his opinion, not ordered. Asked. He stared at the message for a long time before responding. I don't think we can accept this, he said during a private link with Earth's Council.
Not like this.
Faces shifted on the screen. Some frowned. Some nodded. We're not ready, one voice argued. This puts too much pressure on us. I know, Elias said. But if we accept being smaller than we are, we'll stay that way. Another voice asked quietly. And if we refuse, then we'll have to earn our place the hard way, Elias replied. Silence followed. Valeth watched him afterward, her gaze thoughtful.
You chose uncertainty, she said. That's our habit, Elias answered.
The response was sent. Humanity declined. The reaction was immediate. Not anger, not punishment. Concern. Meetings multiplied. Proposals were rewritten. Alliances shifted slightly, like pieces on a board adjusting to a new rule. Some species grew wary. Others grew curious. One envoy approached Elias privately. Why refuse protection? They asked. You were offered safety. Elias met their gaze. Because safety that costs your voice isn't safety. It's silence. The envoy did not argue. Vilas elders convened soon after. Elias was not required to attend, but he was invited. He stood at the edge of the chamber, listening. Humanity moves without patience, one elder said. Yes, Valeth replied. They will disrupt balance. Yes, they will fail. Yes. A pause. Why then do you stand with them? Valeth turned her head slightly, considering. Because they fail forward. The elder regarded Elias. Do you understand what will be asked of you? I think so, Elias said, and I'm still scared. The elder nodded.
Good. Fear keeps attention sharp. The compact announced a new session days later.
Not a challenge, a hearing. Elias stood once more before the gathered powers, but this time he was not alone. Human representatives stood beside him, visible and present. Valeth stood behind them all. The question was simple. Would humanity accept responsibility equal to recognition? There would be no shortcuts, no exemptions, no shielding from consequence. Elias spoke carefully. Yes, he said, but not because we think we're ready. Then why? Asked the moderator.
Because we're tired of waiting to be perfect before doing what's right, Elias replied. The answer spread across the chamber.
When the session ended, no cheers followed. No applause. Just quiet acknowledgement. Afterward, Elias returned to the star viewing chamber alone. He felt smaller than ever, and somehow stronger. Valeth joined him.
You could still walk away, she said. I know, Elias replied.
And if you do not, then we grow, he said. Or we fail trying. Valeth inclined her head. That is alignment. Elias watched the stars drift by. Each one was distant. Each one was real. Humanity had stepped into a space where no one would hold their hand. They had not been given power. They had been given responsibility. And that, Elias realized, was the truest test of all. Somewhere far away, Earth argued, hoped, worried, and prepared. Here, in the quiet between stars, a human stood beside an ancient being and did not feel small. The galaxy was not welcoming them, but it was making room. The final session was not announced as historic. No grand words were used. No banners were displayed. Yet every being who entered the chamber knew this moment would be remembered long after names and borders faded. Elias Ward stood calmly at the center. He felt different now, not stronger in body, not wiser in years, but steadier. The fear was still there, but it no longer controlled him. He had learned something important over these cycles. Fear did not mean stop. Fear meant pay attention. Around him stood representatives of humanity. Scientists, diplomats, observers, not hiding behind words, not leaning on Valeth, but present, visible. Valeth stood slightly behind and to the side, not above, not in front, with him. The moderator spoke. This session will determine the standing of humanity within the compact and the recognition of the bond declared by Matriarch Violeth. All present understand the weight of this moment.
No one argued.
A representative from one of the oldest species spoke first. Their voice carried calm authority.
Human Elias Ward, you have been seen.
Your people have been heard. You were offered shelter and declined it.
You chose responsibility without guarantee. Yes, Elias said.
Why? The representative asked. Why not wait until your people were ready? He did not rush his answer. Because readiness is something we chase forever, he said. If we wait for it, we never move. Humans don't grow by standing still. We grow by stepping forward and learning from what follows. A low murmur moved through the chamber. Another voice spoke. And if your actions cause imbalance? Elias nodded. Then we help fix what we break. We don't walk away. And if you fail, then we try again, he replied simply. The chamber fell quiet. Violeth stepped forward then. The shift was immediate. Attention sharpened. The air felt heavier, as if the space itself leaned closer.
I reaffirm the bond, Valeth said. Not as protection.
Not as ownership, as witness. She turned slowly, addressing every delegate. This human was not chosen because he is exceptional. He was chosen because he is representative. Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest. My people do not bind themselves to power, Valeth continued. We bind to responsibility, to those who carry weight without demanding reward. She extended one hand, palm open, toward Elias. He stands unshielded, she said. I dare anyone here to take him away. No challenge came, no voice rose. Not because they were afraid of Valeth, but because they understood what it would mean. To take Elias would not be an act of strength. It would be an admission of fear. The moderator waited, then spoke. Is there any formal objection? Silence answered. Then let it be recorded, the moderator said, that the bond stands, and that humanity accepts responsibility equal to recognition. The word settled into history. After the session, the chamber slowly emptied. Delegates departed quietly, already adjusting plans, alliances, expectations. The galaxy did not celebrate. It adapted. Elias found himself alone again, standing near the transparent field that opened onto the stars. He watched distant systems drift past, each one holding worlds full of stories. Violeth joined him. It is done, she said. For now, Elias replied. She inclined her head. That is how all lasting things begin. A message arrived from Earth. This one was different. No panic, no argument, just a simple statement from a shared voice. We see you.
Come home when you're ready. Elias closed his eyes for a moment.
I don't think things will ever be the same, he said quietly. They will not. Valeth agreed. For your people or for mine? Do you regret it? Elias asked. She considered the question.
No, change carries risk.
But stagnation carries certainty. He smiled faintly. That sounds almost human. Perhaps, she said, that is why alignment occurred. In the cycles that followed, humanity's place slowly shifted. Not upward. Forward! They were invited to discussions they had once only observed, asked questions instead of being answered for. Their mistakes were noticed, but so were their efforts to repair them. Some species still distrusted humans. That did not change. But distrust was different from dismissal. Elias returned to Earth months later. No parade awaited him. No titles were given. He stepped onto familiar ground and felt gravity pull at him in the same way it always had. He liked that. He returned to his work, teaching, translating, listening, standing unshielded when needed. Valeth did not follow him. She did not need to. The bond was not about distance. It was about recognition. Years later, when younger species asked how humanity earned its place so quickly, the answer was never dramatic. They didn't conquer. They didn't dominate. They didn't demand. They showed up. They stayed. They accepted responsibility when it was offered. And when given the chance to be protected by power, they chose to stand on their own. Somewhere among the stars, a matriarch watched with quiet approval. And somewhere on Earth, a human looked up at the night sky and felt, for the first time, not small, but included. The galaxy had not welcomed humanity with open arms. It had made room. And that was more than enough.